A very substantial part of the federal government in the US is heading for its guillotine moment. The Department of Government Efficiency, as it's come to be called, headed by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, has already prepared dramatic cuts ahead of the takeover by the Trump administration, which is due on January the 20th of next year. Musk has spoken of shock waves to come through the system, and they will come fast. The deadline for the cuts is the 4th of July 2026, but Musk has said the cuts will be delivered well before that, and he has spoken of large-scale firings. The mandate from Trump himself is to dismantle the bureaucracy, no less, and the bureaucracy is about 2 million in all, and many among them clearly now on their way out of government and of a job. The aim of Musk, the declared aim, is to cut $2 trillion of the government budget of $6.75 trillion. A trillion is, of course, a million. The revenue, on the other hand, is just under $5 trillion. So that leaves a deficit of close to $2 trillion, hence the cuts and hence perhaps Musk's declared targets. These cuts may never add up to $2 trillion, but a fraction of that would still be a lot. So, where is the 6.75 trillion being spent currently, and where could the cuts come from? Close to half of that goes into Social Security and Medicare to make sure every American is housed, lives reasonably well, and has the means to access medical care. This is considered the mandatory part of the budget. The other half is considered discretionary, but that includes defense itself, close to $1 trillion. Plus, there are substantial outlays for veterans. There's interest payment on the national debt and payment for a lot of government services, which now could be threatened. The prime cuts are expected in a number of these services and the cost of delivering these services, which is itself quite substantial. Some of these services are certain to disappear. Other cuts are expected through a whole range of extensive pruning so as to cut a great deal of the little that then adds up. The first fall of the axe is being prepared through a legislative, well, call it excuse, government spending that has not been approved continually by the Congress, and that adds up to $516 billion over 491 programs. Some of the ones named already for elimination include public broadcasting, a number of international grants, consumer protection services and programs, college grants, housing assistance, childcare, even NASA. And just who within these will go? Musk is preparing to invite people to jump before they're pushed, so as to end working from home. People then simply will leave rather than go to an office. That is the expectation. Anyhow, and Musk has said this alone will result in a wave of voluntary terminations. Then to relocate offices so that people quit rather than move, and in tandem with all this, to dispose of wasted space within government buildings that are no longer used. There's one count that suggests that wasted space amounts to about 7,000 unused federal buildings. Republican Senator John Ernst from Iowa has prepared a 22-point cut plan for Musk to consider. She suggests, for example, cancelling trains in California, stopping minting small coinage, and also cutting what she calls silly science projects. By way of example, she mentioned one to determine where in the body a bee sting would hurt most. To then end also what she calls overpayment to the United Nations, waste in the Pentagon budget, stop to secret slush funds, and then, of course, to save money through shared cloud computing. These measures, she said, could alone add up to $1 trillion or so in cuts, and she's been in talks with Trump already and with Musk in recent days. Musk says she's done excellent work that is very helpful, a pointer to the way things could unfold. New Doge staff will be introduced briefly into federal departments to spend a little, add a little, and then from there to save and to cut a lot, depending on their recommendations. Doge, of course, can only make recommendations. It is in that sense more a commission than a department. Funding itself is routed through the Congress, but Republicans do now control the Congress, and a new subcommittee has been set up to implement recommended cuts that Congress then accepts. Just about every cut will no doubt be disputed. Many may be challenged legally, but there is very little doubt that they are on their way. The face of the US government will look different in many departments. In some, that face might just disappear altogether.